Okay, welcome back. Been looking forward to having Bill Walton. He's known as the Unwoke CEO. He's the host of the Bill Walton Show. He chairs the Resolute Protector Foundation, which is a 501c3 media production company that creates and produces original educational and entertainment content. Former chairman of the Tea Party Patriots. He also led the agency action and landing teams for all the federal economic agencies for President Trump during his transition team. He does have a website called thebillwaltonshow.com, and there's a picture of the landing page there, billwaltonshow.com. Bill, good to see you. How are you, friend?
Oh, I'm great, Perry. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you bet. Hey, big question. And I say this not hopefully in the sense of being, disrespectful, but is the Democratic Party augured in so deep they can't recover?
Well, it looks like it. Their approval rating now is about 22, 23%, depending on which poll you look at. And, there's a lot of infighting. And right now, according to Nate Silver, who's the pollster who really nailed the prediction on presidential election in 2008, 2012. He was close with Hillary in 2016. And then, anyway, he's got a great record. And he's now predicting that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be the Democrat nominee in 2028. And I'm trying to decide whether that's good news or bad news. I think probably, given I don't think she's electable, I think it's good news for people who want to keep doing what we're doing with Trump.
All right. So can the DNC afford to advance her?
Well, I don't know. There is a question about who and what the DNC is. There are a lot of people who believe, including me, that the Democratic Party's got to rethink. I mean, what Trump did with the coalition he built and bringing in Hispanics and minority blacks and other working class people is he basically took a lot of the coalitions or one of the groups from the Democrat Party and he hollowed them out, and they're not left with much except for the desperately poor and the outrageously rich on the East Coast and the West Coast. And so what do they have? And there's some thought that we might see, although political parties in the United States are extremely resilient, but there might be some pressure to see the Democrat Party split into a progressive wing and a moderate wing. Of course, if that happens, that reduces their chances of winning an election. But nevertheless, particularly the progressives, they are true believers. I mean, they are religious zealots when it comes to all of their agendas, climate, sexual identity, everything like that. So they may find that more appealing to go it that way than be practical and try to win an election.
Okay, because if they go clear over to AOC as being the candidate, which is obviously, and I say this, the radical side of the party, their message has to be something other than Trump's a jerk.
Well, I don't. Yeah, they think that's plenty. I don't know if you've heard about it, but AOC is out on a tour with Bernie Sanders, right. And they're calling it the Fighting Oligarchy Tour. Oligarchy, and they're talking about oligarchy, and they're opposing it, of course, and they're for economic justice, and for them that means Medicare for all, college tuition for all, housing for all, and taxing the rich to pay for all this. That's their first plank, and then they're arguing that economics rights or human rights, on and on and on. All of which would if they implemented some of that, would wreck the country. But they're out there saying, and their rallies are drawing 25,000 people, which is certainly a lot more than Kamala Harris or Joe Biden ever did.
So in the meantime, Doge is uncovering a lot of what the Democrats have been up to over decades. And we all know there's been fraud and fat and just really craziness with the operating of the government. And so their message is, we need more of that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's never enough of that. There's not enough USAID giving money away to Iran to Iraq to sponsor Sesame Street in Iraqi or promoting LGBT rights in Africa. I mean, they're all in for that, and I think we should be. It's a crime that we haven't spent that much money on that. I mean, we're going to stop spending money on that. And I live in the D.C. area, and the protests, they're out there protesting that these things that we think are complete waste, if not fraud, ought to disappear. They're on the opposite camp. You know, I think Elon Musk, who I admire enormously, has run into the buzzsaw of the deep state. And in particular, they've found the federal appellate court's judiciary to back them up and to block President Trump's executive orders. And I think at last count, there were 55 or 60 actions by Trump to reduce the size of government and to right size it for the programs we really need. And those have been blocked by federal judges.
I was going to ask you about that because the injunctions keep mounting, and I don't know if the Supreme Court's going to pick all these up. They seem to be consolidating them, and the last three, as it relates to deportation, they're going to consolidate and hear the oral arguments sometime around May 15th, which, by the way, is 2 weeks past they close oral arguments for the season. But then recently they said, hold off, don't do anything, don't deport anything. And that's even divided to court. What's your 30,000-foot view of the judiciary these days?
Well, I'm worried. I mean, if you look at the Constitution and the document the founders wrote and their passion for separation of power, they never conceived that the judiciary would be making policy. They were supposed to be referees on the law, but nothing else, and that the executive branch was the one to drive the action, and it was going to be funded by Congress. And so what we've got now is a real bastardization of that, and it's put the power back in the hands of now the Supreme Court. And you worry with a 5-4 majority on certain issues. You worry about John Roberts. You worry about Amy Coney Barrett, is how she's going to vote. And so, the way the country goes, the way the federal government goes, tips in the balance depending on how those two people feel that morning when they decide to write their opinion. It's put us in a position we should never be in, but there we are.
All right, so you have the executive, the congressional, or the legislative, and the judicial. Have those lines been blurred?
They're absolutely blurred. I mean, there was
That happened. Sorry about that. We'll see if we can get reconnected quickly. You may want to check out his show. It's called theBillWaltonShow.com. There's a picture of the landing page. And again, pretty experienced gentleman and how the system goes and works, as he was part of the agencies that worked with the President Trump's transitional team in coming into office. So he's got a lot to express and share with us. Again, that's called theBillWaltonShow.com. So I apologize for that. Sometimes that happens. I guess the overall thing is, let me just come back to some basic things with you real quick here. Are you surprised at the speed of the action of the president?
No, I'm not surprised how quickly Donald Trump's moved. This is the way he likes to do things. What I am, I won't say surprised, what I am disappointed in is that after a lot of momentum in the first 60, 75 days, tremendous momentum, it all seems to be stalled out right now, and we're not seeing a lot of movement in some areas we'd like to see it. And in particular, I want to see some movement on the tariff negotiation. You were mentioning in your prologue or your introduction about issues with tariffs on equipment for your studio. Well, that's happening to everybody in every sector of the economy, and we basically have said we're going to negotiate individual trade agreements with 50, 60 countries, and we haven't concluded one yet. And I think we need to see, because the trade issue, the tariff issue, really looms over all the rest of Trump's agenda. So he needs to make that happen. And in that case, I wish he'd move a lot faster.
Steve Forbes yesterday spoke to that, and his comments pushed the market down pretty high. It came back this morning pretty high, or pushed the market down pretty low, but it came back pretty high today. But the bottom line is, even Steve Forbes is underlining what you're saying here, Bill, and that is, these things don't seem to be coming together quickly. I don't know where it is where you are, but we haven't seen anything but an increase in gas prices. Somewhere along the line, you would think somewhere about here, maybe here through July, all of these changes should produce better results, don't you think?
Well, you know, I grew up in Indiana, and my parents and my grandparents, when we were at the table, would say, "Don't bite off more than you can chew." Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid that maybe in this case he's bitten off more than he can chew, and that, you know, you think about the trade representative's office. It's not big. There are not a lot of people in there, and they're used to dealing with one agreement at a time, or multilateral agreement, or working with WTO. They're not used to going at all speeds with Japan, with France, with Vietnam, you know, China. I mean, it's a massive undertaking, and I hope we've got that staffed properly, because it's going to take some talent to make this happen.
Do you think he forces Chairman Powell out of the Feds?
Yes, well, I think that's his. That's the mode he's in now. I mean, I mean, I find Donald Trump terrific, but I also find him infuriating sometimes, because he does get into this sort of big guy mode, where he calls decisions and likes to make things happen at his whim. And I think at some point, probably in the next month or two, Jay Powell's not going to reduce rates, and Powell's going to move, or Trump's going to move to fire him.
Why isn't Powell moving to lower rates? I mean, the Feds. Well, I guess maybe a question for you, Bill. Do we need the Feds? I mean, do we need this?
No, we do not need the Fed.
Okay.
We don't need the Fed. The Fed's ridiculous. The Fed has you talk about mission creep. I mean, people think the Fed is about money, but, you know, they're now trying to help produce full employment, and I have no idea how money policy results in full employment. And in some of the more radical districts, like San Francisco, they were pushing radical climate change and radical DEI agendas and CRT. And so they've got a big agenda that they've drifted away completely. And they've got, you know, 1,000 or so PhD economists from MIT, and they all agree, they're all Keynesians, and they all believe in, you know, if you want the economy to go, you got to stimulate it. I also think that the Fed would tend to drag its feet with a Republican president like Trump, because I don't know the precise numbers, but I'd guess most of the people who worked at the Fed did not vote for Donald Trump. And
right.
So if they can slow down his agenda, I think they would do that.
Can the president fire the chairman or not?
You know, I'm not sure. You know, we didn't think that you could fire the head of the the Consumer Protection Bureau, the creation of Elizabeth Warren, and they went ahead and did that. And so there's some things they're doing which people thought they couldn't do, and they're going to let the courts sort it out.
Okay. Good to see you. Let me say to our viewers, check out Bill's show. It's called theBillWaltonShow.com. There is the landing page, picture of the landing page. You can check out the show there at BillWalton.com. Good to see you, friend. Thanks for your time.
Great talking with you.
Okay, see you later.